What the
But my dad, F you, F this, F that. Oh, Nancy Pelosi. No, she screwed us. My dad, my dad, my dad. This vulgar creep. Yikes. It's unbelievable. Hey, Hunter, a big part of why you lost is you and that crazy laptop and all the shenanigans you've been involved in, along with your dad. Everybody's responsible except Hunter and his dad for losing, and losing bad, having to leave that race in utter and complete defeat and humiliation. What was fascinating to me, though, throughout this little podcast, and I'll get to it later, we're not going to spend much time on it now, he kept talking about, my dad, he's good at politics. He won Delaware 7 times, as if that's hard. And he kept calling it public service. My dad, who dedicated his life to public service. This is not public service, okay? Houses all over the place, mansions, cars, Rolex watches galore, all that money coming in. This is, what's a good word? Corruption, bribery, I don't know, graft. It's not public service, all right? And neither is this, by the way.
I want to emphasize to you, Ms. President-elect, that we now are going to want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds.
Yeah, right, you dirty dog and your whole team. You were so mad the morning after the election, and you guys vowed to do even more to sabotage that man's presidency than you'd already done to sabotage his campaign. The dirty dozen, 10 dozen, how many people were involved, we don't know, but getting more and more insight into it a little bit. We have 100 pages of documents from the Directorate of National Intelligence, DNI. And to be honest, a lot of this is gobbledygook. It provides something of a roadmap to the Russia hoax and how Russia, totally threw this thing to Trump, which is not true. But it really was a lesson for me in how these bureaucrats write. We have moderate confidence that there is a low probability, that there is a high likelihood that something awful is going to happen within the next 6 to 18 months. It's how they talk. It's CYA, right? Everybody knows what a CYA email is. Cover your rear end, right? It's just a swamp game, all of it. It is a mess, but this is how they roll. And the people who have mastered this game, well, they actually shot themselves in the foot. These folks, Comey, Brennan, and the rest of them, it is all coming out slowly but surely. Actually doing something about it, well, these people are clever. I'll tell you that. They tried to cover their tracks, but I think we got them. If not in outright criminal behavior, certainly in, well, no one should ever believe this man again, no matter what comes out of his mouth.
What I was concerned about in particular was making sure that that wasn't compounded by potential hacking that could hamper vote counting, affect the actual election process itself. And so in early September, when I saw President Putin in China, I felt that the most effective way to ensure that that didn't happen was to talk to him directly and tell him to cut it out, and there were going to be some serious consequences if he didn't.
This made news a long time ago. What amused me the most was, cut it out, Vladimir, cut it out. Like, that's going to work, right? He has no persuasion skills with somebody like Vladimir Putin. But he said he was concerned that some of these technologies, the Russians, would influence the vote counting. Well, his own intelligence agencies said that was not a risk. Document after document, a lot of the names redacted, but if you can see this one, I know it's a little bit hard, okay? I took the intent of this email to get the basic starting point regarding Russia. We agree with Russia probably is not and will not trying to influence the election by using cyber means to manipulate computer-enabled election infrastructure. I know that's a little bit awkward, but that's kind of the way they like it. They bury this stuff and then they shroud it in jargon. But this says right here that the intelligence community did not believe what Barack Obama said. Now, the intelligence community is thoroughly corrupt, okay? They have their own agenda here. And part of that actually melded nicely with Barack Obama's agenda, which was to screw up Trump and make his presidency illegitimate. They tried by this whole Russia, right? Just talk about Russia, Russia, Russia. And if you do that enough, people will buy it, and then they can have an investigation to slow things down. Everybody remembers this, kinda? Well, we remember guys like this saying it a lot.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle. They did it with purpose. They did it with sophistication. They did it with overwhelming technical efforts. And it was an active measures campaign driven from the top of that government. There is no fuzz on that.
Well, there's all kinds of fuzz. In these documents, the FBI at one point actually wanted to pull their name, pull the FBI's seal of approval on a great big document that said just that. Take a look again. Below are the inputs from the FBI. Sorry for the delay, top of the screen here, due to a long weekend. Okay, now check this out. On page 5, under blah, 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 adversaries with intent section, we would prefer for the first sentence, okay, come back here, regarding Russia's intent to be softened. This is the FBI's recommendation. The way it currently reads, it would indicate that we have definitive information that Russia does intend to disrupt our elections, and we are uncomfortable making that assessment. How about that? I'd call that a lot of fuzz. Fuzz. Speaking of the fuzz. Hey, and the other thing you could say to Mueller when he said that, so what? Okay, the Russians tried to do something. So what? That was really the best answer or rejoinder, because Russia always screws with elections going back to the 1950s. Every presidential election, they tried to meddle in to some degree or another, all right? Some of it's, you know, just, it happens. And oh, by the way, America does the same damn thing, even to our allies. So a couple of other real quick points, because this is back in the news and it must be remembered when the Mueller report actually got published. There are a couple of fascinating tidbits that everybody missed except they figured out that the Russians were starting to influence the election of 2016 in 2014. That's when they set up their whole operations. In mid-2014, the IRA, which is like the Internet Research Agency, that was what the Russians called it, sent employees to the United States on an intelligence gathering mission with instructions, blah, blah, blah. And how about this? The Russians purchased over $3,500 in advertisements and expenditures that totaled $100,000. Now, in that campaign between President Trump and Hillary Clinton, I think they spent about $10 billion. $100,000 can't do a damn thing, all right? But exaggerating all of this and making it an issue, well, that was the purpose. Barack Obama and Brennan, we know that by now. And you really know it when Brennan and the others write books. He detested everything about President Trump. You know, President Trump asked a question about how much money do you guys pay your sources, right? You pay people, don't you? Listen to what Brennan had to say about that.
I stared at Trump, shook my head in disgusted disagreement, and bit my tongue nearly hard enough to draw blood.
That's pretty intense for a pretty standard run-of-the-mill question. Now, he didn't only have it in for the executive branch, the incoming executive branch, but also the legislative branch. I'm no big fan of Mitch McConnell, but Mitch McConnell heard these briefings about Russia and the election, and he was very skeptical, and he told Brennan that. Listen to Brennan's reaction.
One might say that the CIA and the Obama administration are making such claims in order to prevent Donald Trump from getting elected president. I was completely gobsmacked by his comment. Here was the Republican leader of the Senate dismissing intelligence delivered personally by the director of the CIA about Russian interference in a presidential election that was only 2 months away. By suggesting that the CIA was part of a plot by the Democrats to win the presidential election, McConnell showed his own strongly partisan political instincts. I could feel myself getting mad, but I suppressed a very strong urge to tell him in very colorful terms what I thought of his offensive comment.
I don't know. He's getting awfully angry when people ask him pointed questions. Why are you so sensitive and angry, John Brennan? I bet he thought nobody would read that book, or maybe an editor would take out all the stuff they were supposed to take out, so you did not incriminate yourself, but you sure did, pal. You sure did. Hey, at least you did it in book form. You know, I mean, more respectable, I guess, than this text message. Schrock and Page. I have to revisit this. You can't forget how overt their anti-Trump, derail Trump mission was. And when you called them out on the text message, how dare you draw a totally reasonable and appropriate conclusion?
Not once in my 26 years of defending our nation did my personal opinions impact any official action I took.
But for Republicans, it's proof of bias, forcing Strzok to read some of his anti-Trump messages with FBI lawyer Lisa Page, with whom he was having an affair.
Ms. Page said, not ever going to become president, right?
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
Strzok trying to explain.
It was in response to a series of events that included then-candidate Trump insulting the immigrant family of a fallen war hero. And my presumption, based on that horrible, disgusting behavior, that the American population would not elect somebody demonstrating that behavior to be president of the United States.
Wow. Watches a lot of MSNBC. That's a fake news story, by the way, that whole thing about the cons. Total fake news. He never insulted that family, but this is where these people are coming from. Quick reminder about that 51 intelligence, right? The 51 intelligence officers, they came forward in the nick of time to say that the Hunter Biden laptop was what? Russia disinformation. And what's that quote again? Had all the hallmarks or earmarks of a Russian information campaign. All the earmarks. Now, what does that actually mean? That sometimes the Russians use laptops too? I feel like this kind of works. Ted Bundy, the serial killer, right? He used a Volkswagen. Did you know that? Whether you've been to a serial killer museum, of which there are some, or you watch it on Netflix, Ted Bundy drove a Volkswagen. Does that mean these fine? Yeah, there he is again. How about these fine people out for a day at the beach? They have all the earmarks of serial killers, right? That's the game that the swampy and dirty FBI, deep state, CIA played. And you can spend your time reading this. It's not good for them, but they're bureaucrats. And they did a lot of CYA in here, a lot of CYA. Still, I think they can be brought to justice and will. All right.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.